Hi everyone, welcome back to this month's release notes. I'm Edgar Quadra, Solutions Consultant here at Star Telecom. And for this video today, I'm going to be talking about the August 2023 releases. I'm by myself today. My other colleagues are busy handling other client requests. So I'll just get right into it. August is a busy month. There's 5 weeks for releases, and let's just get right into it. Okay. So for the first one, August 2nd releases, we have WhatsApp pricing update structure. So if you don't know, Genesys Cloud through its messaging channels is able to support WhatsApp messaging. So think of it, you have your customers inbound messaging, they have WhatsApp open, and then they can talk to agents through WhatsApp, and then agents just receive it as a normal web chat or in the interface there. So really cool, but there is pricing updates change to that. So if that is a channel that you're using, definitely it would have reflected already in your invoice billing, but just to recap, you can go here and see what that new pricing is. Next one here is copy and share interaction transcripts. So now administrators can now copy entire transcripts of the interaction and then share them. So what does that look like? Let me bring over my interface here. And I have an interaction already open here, and I am going to the transcription section. And you can see that there's transcriptions in here. Genesys now makes it super simple. Click on copy transcription, and then you can copy and paste into Notepad or Excel. Let me just bring up my Excel here. New, and I'm going to copy paste. So today you're getting a little Excel tutorial. So I'm going to paste it as text, and now you can see the transcription. Right. So this is in Excel. So perhaps maybe you want to use this for your QA processes, or you want to send this off as a quick email to somebody. So new feature in here. It has a lot of other nice details in here. So what you could do is you can take this this interaction ID, copy and paste that in the interactions view, and you'll be able to actually look up that full interaction here. So a nice little feature add-on by Genesys this month. I'm not going to save that. Let's go back in here. Okay, next one here is web messaging inbound custom attribute size limits request. So within Genesys Cloud, each conversation or each attribute object has a size limit of 248 bytes. If you have a use case where you require a bigger size limit, you can send a request to customer care Genesys Cloud, and they can increase that limit for you. Next one here is SMS short code number in France. So Genesys, as we know, it's global. And now within the France, you can go ahead and set up a short code in the France region to be able to communicate and interact with those your potential clients in France. Next one here, improved work balance in predictive routing. This one's actually very fun and unique. So predictive routing enables you to, or enables, it's a routing type that gives you the ability to push calls to agents most likely to achieve a positive KPI outcome. So one of the KPIs that Genesys or predictive routing looks at is the idle time, is the estimated wait time, I believe. I can't remember at the top of my head. I'll have to go back into my notes to look at that. So don't hold me to that. But what Genesys has been watching is that it actually provides an imbalanced distribution of calls. So agents that are higher scored to meet that KPI are receiving more calls than agents that are scored at lower. So then they're receiving less calls when predictive routing is enabled. So now Genesys has fixed that, improved the algorithm, improved the way predictive routing it works within Genesys Cloud, and has introduced this new 2 new options. So it will then also monitor agent idle time, or also monitor current occupational rate. So nice feature add-on for predictive routing. If it is something that you are doing, or if you're looking to do it, could be a good time now to go ahead and see how predictive routing can affect your queue performance. And just to recap here, What I really like about looking at predictive routing is if I'm going to go to admin, I'm going to go open to my queues section here in my lab. And what I really like here is you can actually do a routing evaluation, get it started, and to see if any one of your queues, one, is compatible to enable predictive routing, and then two, what effect predictive routing will have on your queues. So definitely go ahead and take a look at that, see if that's something you want to enable, start playing around with. Maybe it will have positive impacts on your in your contact center. Okay. Moving on here is integration. So 2 score setting options for ranking weighting interactions. So Genesys has introduced the ability now to rank weighting interactions. So one is priority score and existing conversation score, which adds to the priority and wait time. So now when you go ahead and you configure queues, you can set those ranking options for weighting interactions. So again, improving the routing capabilities within Genesys Cloud, which ultimately goes to better customer satisfaction. Okay, now the next few updates here are at the platform level. So PCI DSS recertification. So as we know, Genesys Cloud is PCI compliant, and then so now Genesys is now compliant to PCI version 4. So always being ahead of the curve and making sure that Genesys is constantly monitoring its security, one, certifications, but then also two, just making sure Genesys is keeping up with industry standards. Okay. Next one here is Genesys Cloud WhatsApp embedded sign up for self-serve onboarding. So let's see here now. So this is related to when you enable WhatsApp on your Genesys environment. Now the whole sign-up process is embedded within the application. I know previously I did this for a client a couple of years back where I had to actually go to fill out some forms within Facebook and to register and to verify that I do own this particular business. Facebook is the owner of WhatsApp, if you didn't know that. So then now that whole sign-up process is now embedded in the application in Genesys Cloud, so it's very cool. Subscribe to events from the operational console. So now there's different events that Genesys shoots out, so more on the lower end system level. So now as an administrator, if you want to monitor those events, you're definitely able now to sign up for those triggers in those events. Right, so here's an example from the developer page here. So these all particular events, these endpoints can be signed up, and then you can have those triggers sent to a NOC or a NOC. A NOC is Network Operational Center, and within that, there's different tools to monitor the different systems in the contact center or the overall business. So we can have those events sent to your NOC as an example here, or your network administrator or your contact center administrator to get real-time events of what's happening within Genesys Cloud, and more specifically your org. Right, so some of these events are related to integration errors, some lookup and failures, and then at the telephony level, if there's some issues happening there. This one's actually interesting, remote or WebRTC remote disconnect. So that means if an agent's RTC phone gets disconnected, send out a trigger. Right, so up-to-date statuses of what's going on with the contact center and your agents. Okay, so a couple of deprecations here. Genesys is removing the outbound search audit view, and then also mandatory SMS, US and Canada registration. So if you are using SMS through Genesys Cloud Services, not through your BYOC partner, or which should have been done through your BYOC partner, but Genesys is mandating now that you register through its registration process to make sure that your SMS codes are not disabled. So if you're not on that, or if you are using it, you would have had by August 11th to get that done. All right, and that ends this week's August 2nd release notes. I'm going to now move on now to the next week, August 9th. Right, so it's a shorter week, or smaller week of releases for August 9th. One is in the contact center, force stop button in digital campaign management. So for those of us that don't know, you can use Genesys outbound campaigns for SMS and email. So now Genesys has a force stop option to stop those campaigns mid-run. Maybe, hate to say it, but maybe during email, there's you start noticing a large amount of failure to receives. So you can force the campaign to stop and then troubleshoot that, see what's going on, and then restart it after the fact. Okay. Under the integration section, limits for JSON objects depth in data action services. Okay, so this is a much deeper one here, but basically it looks like for JSON options, we can now have levels, 50 levels within data action requests and responses. I'm not a developer. I do know that through JSON objects, there are these requests and responses. It looks like there is now, it limits that. There's a limitation in set now to help the performance of those data actions. So that's always a good thing, right? So when Genesys recognizes that it needs to set a limit on certain things to improve the performance, especially when it comes to data actions, it's going to go ahead and do that. Where that could affect our clients here and you is if you're doing a lot of IVR lookups, so maybe through to a CRM or an outside web services, so maybe an inventory lookup for a retail customer, potentially this data action limit will help improve that, so it doesn't have to go through more than 50 levels. It'll kind of set that there and potentially improve the lookup or experience within the IVR. Okay, next one here is under the platforms, trigger inclusion in Genesys Cloud CX1 licensing. So if you only subscribe to Genesys Cloud 1, you now have Genesys added a feature to that license for triggers. And triggers is actually a very, very useful feature within the platform. So what this means, and this is actually geared more towards being able to automate certain tasks within Genesys Cloud. And triggers is something that you can set up on the back end in the architect, so it can monitor, let's say, a wrap-up code. So when a wrap-up code gets set by the agent, trigger this next action. So think about that, is if this, then that type of scenario. And these are some of the topics that are available to create the trigger and then to action on next action. All right, and that ends August 9th release notes. Okay, let's move on now to the August 16th week release notes. Okay, so very first one on the contact center, add additional voice transcription accuracy improvements for Japanese. So those that have Japanese channels, Genesys has now improved the voice accuracy when it comes to transcriptions. Sensitive data masking for voice interactions. This one's interesting. So what this is when Genesys Cloud automatically detects, let's go down here, sensitive data. So within the voice transcription, if Genesys Cloud detects PCI data, so for example, card number, expiry date, postal code, any of these values here, the voice transcription will automatically detect that. So then when you're listening to the conversation, what you're going to hear, and if you don't have the permission, you're going to hear blank audio. Also in the voice transcription, it's going to be blanked out. This is more now in lines with PCI regulations. However, best practices for this is to enable, during the capture of the sensitive data, is to enable secure pause or secure call flows. So an example here is maybe I'm asking the customer to verify their postal code or some personal information. And what you could do is you can build an IVR and an IVR experience to capture that. So an example here is, okay, Mr. Customer, I need to verify a couple pieces of information before I can access your account. Let me transfer you over to our authentication flow, and it will ask you a couple of questions. And so then now when you do that, when you do that transfer, we can put them into secure flow. then the IVR is going to ask them a couple questions, maybe from their CRM, and then it will verify, yes, that is correct, that is not correct, or that is correct. And then it will transfer them back to the agent. All the agent will see on their agent script or screen is authenticated or verified, and then it can move on, right? So that's just a small use case. It's more complex than what I made it out to be, but that's where, and that's the best practices that Genesys Cloud offers. But it does have this as a backup, where if some of that information is spoken in the open channel of lines of communication with the customer, then Genesys will mask that data in voice interactions. Okay. Additional CX1 digital add-on capabilities. So now organizations with the CX1 licensing and digital add-on 2 can now have a couple of extra digital capabilities. It's including digital notification APIs, email, SMS campaigns, co-browse for web messaging, and so forth. Yep. So now if you have CX1 with the digital 2 add-on, you're getting some extra bonus features. Yay! Okay, next here is co-browse for web messaging read-only fields and buttons. I actually like this a lot. I think it's super interesting that Genesys is doing this, and just from a kind of scratches my nerd kind of itch here. So, and I know, so what this is when you have co-browse enabled on screen here, and the agent is looking at that customer's website, co-browse kind of renders the website in the agent screen, and then they can monitor what's happening on screen, and they can actually click and interact with that website that the customer is sharing. But what now you can do here is working with your web developers of your website here, based on CSS selectors, or just think of them as variables. You can attach, let's say in this text field or in this submit button, attach these tags to it, and then when we configure Genesys, when we configure co-browse for the agent, we can monitor those CSS tags and not let the agent click or interact with those website fields, making them essentially read-only. Where this can come into play is maybe for the agent, we set the submit button to read-only. So that means only the client or the customer can click that submit button. Really cool feature, and yeah, I just think that's a very handy, something definitely to look at if you are using co-browse, and I just think that's an incredible feature. Dashboard summary page enhancements. Okay, so some of you may know that the dashboards and just overall the performance views UI has changed and have made some enhancements. So some of those enhancements for dashboard monitoring or dashboard maintenance is under dashboard. You can now see it's more of a list view now. And then from here, you can go ahead and maybe select them. You can see who owns or dashboards owned by me, public, private, or favorites. And there's also this dashboard owners view, which I think is actually kind of cool. So let's say we have a couple of employees that are no longer with the company or part of the contact center, but they've made a bunch of dashboards. You can go ahead as administrator, go ahead and select that user and delete their dashboards. Right? Pretty cool little management for the dashboards. I think that comes in handy just to make sure your contact center environment is clean, I like to say. Okay. Next here is dashboard management for administrators. I just talked about that. Knowledge follow-up task in bot flows and digital bot flows. I like this one as well. So those of you that are not aware, is if you've spent the time building up your knowledge base for your agents, or your bots, or you can create bots to take advantage of that knowledge base. And one of the cool things here is when a knowledge article gets presented to your web customer by the knowledge bot, you can have follow-up tasks to say, oh, was that enough? Or did that help you? Or would you like some more information in here? So it kind of guides the customer if by chance their initial question was more ambiguous and the knowledge bot didn't quite present the appropriate knowledge-based article to them. We can have a follow-up task just to confirm that they do get the correct knowledge article. Okay. Next one here is under the integrations. Lex version 2 is now available in the FedRAMP region. So those that are government organizations, you can now take advantage of Lex as part of the AI experience. Okay, deprecations and announcements. Search audit views deprecation. So Genesys is now removing the search audits view and will now be an independent now for the documents. So a small little change there. A certification renewal TLS for BYOC customers. There's certificate authority change for Microsoft Teams integration. So Genesys Cloud, if you are using the Microsoft Teams integration with Genesys Cloud, Genesys has updated that certification, TLS certifications with Microsoft. Really no action needed with these certification updates or changes by you, the client. Genesys is taking that on the back end, or your partner should be aware of that as well. And then one for what we're seeing right now, release notes update category improvements. So Genesys is now just re-looking at how they publish their release notes to make it a bit more user-friendly and just make it more logical, organized, which I personally appreciate as I'm doing this every month. And any way to make these videos easier for me to produce for everyone, the better. Okay, and that ends August 16th release notes. I'm going to move on now to the next week. Okay, and now for August 23rd releases, very small, light. Let's go ahead and open them up and expand and see what we're working with. Extended voice transcription services support for Cantonese, Mandarin, and Taiwanese. So what extended voice transcription is out of the box, Genesys doesn't support some languages. However, there are third-party applications, third-party services that could support and do the transcription of some of these either complex or unique languages. So now Genesys is now supporting the one that streaming of this Canton or of these languages to these third-party transcription services, and Cantonese, Mandarin, and Taiwanese have just received that treatment. Real-time agent filtering and agent updates. Okay, so in the dashboards, there is an agent widget within the dashboards. And I'm just going to quickly open up one of my dashboards here in my environment to see what that experience is here. Okay. And I'm just going to bring that over here. And in here, you're able now to refresh this interaction, this widget for the agent. So a nice little feature here, being able to go ahead and filter and work on that for the agent widget. Okay. Next here is self-serve and automation. Nuance mix integration support for Canada. So Nuance is one of the out-of-the-box partnerships for AI services within dashboards. And now we can go ahead and use Nuance in the Canadian region or the Canadian orgs. So that's a nice add-on to our Canadian customers, and personally myself, since we work a lot with our Canadian customers. Okay, and then now the last one here is update to JSON variables and states in Architect bot flows. Again, maybe a little bit over my head. I apologize for those that want some more in-depth programming or Architect, but there is an update now to how those JSON variables are handled within the digital bot flows and the Architect flows. Okay. All right, let's move on now to the last week of August 23. It's August 30th. Pretty loaded week. So for the first one here is under the customer engagement, is conditional group routing as a timeout routing method for preferred agent routing. That's a mouthful. But basically what that means is if you are currently using preferred routing for one of your queues, so you go under queues, you go to the routing method. I have it here under a demo one, and I go to routing. under the timeout method, so if that preferred agent or that group of preferred agents was not available, then what's the next action or the timeout after the 10 seconds is achieved? You have standard routing, which gives us best matching or kind of the default bullseye, but now is conditional group routing. So under conditional group routing, if you don't know, is now a routing method that enables you to route calls based on predefined groups within Genesys Cloud, and then you can do that based on certain KPIs. So for example, here is if my preferred agent routing or pool of agents is not available, so then now use this group routing method. And if their estimated wait time for these group of agents is under or less than the estimated wait time, then route to that group of agents. Now, I don't have anything stepping here, but this now gives you the ability, more flexibility to expand the scope, kind of like bullseye routing, but you're able to add a bit more. You're able to customize those groups across different queues, so the groups don't actually view or adhere to queues or queue membership. It actually adheres to group membership, if that makes any sense. Okay, I'm gonna move on here. And next one here is require WebRTC media helper. So the media helper helps improve the experience of the WebRTC phone for remote users or users that may not have the best internet access. Maybe they're remote or so forth. So now administrators during the setup of the WebRTC phone can set the feature to require them to download the helper to improve their remote desktop or the WebRTC experience. So one of the ones use cases is if you work in a VDI or virtual desktop environment, that helper will bypass that environment and go directly outside the environment. No, that might make a lot of sense here, but it is something for your IT team to be aware of if that's a scenario that you find yourselves in. Custom music for agent hold. So with here, if you if an agent puts the customer on hold, you can now specify what that hold music experience is. So you can select certain prompts here. Maybe you record your own prompt with marketing messages, and any kind of marketing information or customer service messaging you can want in here. So under the voice queue settings, you can specify what is that hold music to override what the main IVR flow hold music may be. Okay. Next is end interactions automatically when agents log off. So during after call work time, and if the agent logs off but the after call work time is still enabled, at the org level, you can specify to end that interaction when the agent logs off. So you don't have interactions kind of waiting around in kind of limbo to be closed off. Genesys can go ahead. You can set that. Setting to log or to end those interactions when an agent logs off. Improve media handling for outbound message attachments. So this is a fairly new feature called supported content profiles. So with outbound messages or inbound messages for email, chat, or social chat messaging, you can specify what attachment types are supported. So this is how you create the profile, and these are some of the supported content types. And you can set profiles for each media channel to say, okay, for Facebook and Messenger, I only going to accept image files, right? Or a very specific WhatsApp channel, I'm only going to select or allow PDFs to go through, as an example there. Okay, let's move on. Here is under digital analytics and reporting. So now more phrases and topic support for these Slavic languages, I believe. Don't Don't put any hate messages in the comments there. But that's actually Hebrew is not Slavic, so I apologize for that. But Danish, Finnish, Hebrew, Norwegian, and Swedish programs have now is now available for topic and phrases under the sentiment analysis campaign building. Campaign interaction details, views, and exports. That's a mouthful. But what that means here is there's under the performance views campaign details, you can now click on interactions. You can see what all those interactions are for that outbound campaign. And then you can go to export and export more detailed information. So interactions detail and detailed attempted history is now available as an export option for campaign performance views. Okay, under the open platform is Genesys Cloud for Chrome extension update. Those of you may or not be aware that there is a Chrome update to have the Genesys telephony options kind of just floating on screen there. So you can take interactions that way. It's kind of a cool little feature there. But now they've removed the ability to for jQuery dependencies. Okay. Call-in party ID and p-asserted identifier SIP header. So this is more of a back-end telephony telecom feature. But if you require or if you require dynamic your caller ID to be changed, not only can you do that within the application, Genesys application admin section, telephony options, actually trunk settings, you can do that when you set that up here. There's now the ability to embed that dynamic ID within the appropriate SIP header section. Yealink headset support. So I actually have a Yealink phone, and I've noticed this now for a couple since August, that Genesys is asking permission to access some of the hang up button, raise volume buttons directly on my headset. So nice little feature there for anyone that's using Yealink headsets. Self-serve and automation, additional formatting for knowledge workbench articles. So now within the knowledge workbench, you're able to add more stylized the articles. So just allows you to be more creative, especially when they're customer-facing articles. You can highlight certain keywords, phrases, and better alignment when those knowledge-based articles are customer-facing, I think. Okay, test digital bot flows in real time. So this is glad it's there. I'm sure there's reasons why it hasn't been out earlier. But when you are creating digital bot flows within Genesys Cloud, you now have the ability to test that bot experience within the architect tool without having to publish it. Go to the website, refresh the page, and then see what that experience is like. Nice little feature there. Intent health and architect flows. So for those that are using bot very extensively and you're always improving the experience based on the intents, Genesys now has those pre-built intents that you do for your bot. Genesys will now give you a health kind of check on how well those are doing. If there's any new intents that you need to add or utterances, so those are similar like under the intents there. Genesys now gives you that update to help you kind of manage those intents further on, maybe add some new intents or just to see how well they're performing and how you can improve your bot experience for your customers. Okay. Under workforce engagement, quality evaluation scores are now available under the gamification metric. So now you can create scores based on so you can now create gamification points based on the quality evaluation scores. You can create that as a widget to help improve or add a new element to the gamification there in the contact center. Okay, a couple announcements now, and we're going to wrap this up here. Is this was mentioned earlier in this week, but now as of the end of the month in August, you need to subscribe. You need to go through the 10-digit digital long code for SMS approval process to be able to use those long codes within Genesys Cloud. We're still talking about edges here in Genesys Cloud, but now Genesys is out of that hardware business and has now given that over to Arrow Electronics to offer bare bone hardware where edge solutions are needed in your environment. Okay, so it looks like Genesys has now completely removed the digital agent workspace when you have the digital only licensing. Okay, and that's it. All right, so that ends August overall. I think it was a very good, but a very good month for features. Definitely review some of these that are more relevant to you. And again, my name's Edgar Quadra. Thanks for joining me this month for our release notes. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments or reach out to Star Telecom, and we'll definitely be able to answer those questions. Please, again, remember to like and subscribe our YouTube video. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.